Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, welcome back, Tennessee Sports Guys, here on a Sunday night where I am joined, as always, by my good friends, Rocky Top Insider, Ryan Schumpert himself, the one, the only Rocky Top Insider many are saying. Ryan, good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. Glad to be back on here, and I don't know if there's really any true glowing remarks about a win over Vanderbilt, but after the last 2 weeks, this one should be a little less bleak, I guess.
Hey, you got to be inside in a nice, cushiony, warm press box, I imagine, out rather than the good folks who sat out in the cold for what was like a 3.5-hour game, 4-hour game,
4-hour game.
Yeah, very cold. Couldn't be me. Could not be me sitting in that. So no, I was still on my way back actually from Atlanta. So I watched the first quarter in the car, and that was an interesting time. But we'll get into that Vanderbilt game momentarily. Jack Foster of Always College Football is here let me check my notes here, always is. Jack, good evening, sir. How are you?
Hey, pretty good. It's a great Sunday. Can't believe the regular season's over. It's a little sad. I was watching Cal UCLA like a sicko, and Cal thump UCLA. It wasn't even close. And I was like, man, it's the last Pac-12 game. It's the last regular season game. But next week should be a lot of fun. So still more enjoyment to be had from the college football season, but sucks that it's pretty much over now.
It got him to bowl eligibility, right? Isn't Cal bowl eligible?
And Justin Williams-Thomas, bowl eligible.
Good for him.
Cal, he's from Chase's alma mater, right?
No.
Who was the dude that the running back that was either committed or briefly?
Cody Brown
at Tennessee.
I think it's Cody. I think it was Cody Brown. He went to Miami.
Sounds right. Kind of.
When the Pruitt shift happened, he went to Miami. I don't know where he finished though.
Okay.
He was a 4-star.
I don't know why I have him and Justin Williams-Thomas. I just have it's the same person because they were like 4-star backs from Georgia that I don't think they didn't necessarily play like 4 stars in college.
Also, am I misremembering, or was he a Stanford running back too? Did he go to
Stanford for and had a cup of coffee and then transferred to Cal?
Okay. Yeah.
I don't even know if he went there, but he was committed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
He was in Cal by the time fall camp started for sure.
I love the idea of him pitting the professors at Cal and Stanford against each other, because that's clearly an academic reason to go to choose between those two schools. So very bright kid. I just have this idea of him getting on the phone, just getting the philosophy professor on the line for Cal, and then getting the philosophy professor on the line for Stanford. Be like, all right, what do you got? What is the curriculum? What does that calendar look like this fall? What are we going to be talking about? What books are going to be in play? How much influence do I have in terms of what's coming down the pike here?
I have a very funny Justin Williams-Thomas story, just very quickly.
I love this. Very niche for this podcast.
When Spire Sports kind of launched in their whole partnership with Tennessee and all that launched, they held this big event at the Hyatt Hotel downtown. And this was before the 2022 season started. And Hendon and Cedric were the people that were showing off the shirts. They were there speaking about it, about NIL, all this stuff. And they also had Justin Williams-Thomas there. And he was portrayed as the future. It was okay, Hendon and Cedric are the now. And we got Justin over here. He's the future. He spoke a little bit later, a bunch of the baseball team members came. And I'm not, trying to rag on Justin Williams. I think he's a great running back and, just didn't work out at Tennessee. And I talked to him that night. He's a great guy, but it is kind of interesting to look back on it. And he was the future of this whole thing. And then he played in 4 games for Tennessee and then transferred after 1 year. So,
wow. Yeah, no, I mean, he was the future, just not at Tennessee. He was the future.
I should have shipped Nico in for the press conference.
Goodness gracious. Speaking of Nico Iamaleava, we got to see him a little bit, not too much, because Josh Heupel would like for me to watch as much as the Vanderbilt football game as humanly possible before I divvy all my attention onto the Iron Bowl and what happened there late. 24 hours later, though, Tennessee smacks Vanderbilt. The game was really never close after the first trick play by Vanderbilt, which was pretty good. It was a pretty cool trick play. The camera crew obviously got completely faked out there, and then looked like maybe Tennessee's defense was going to be sleepy enough, and without so many bodies that Vanderbilt was going to be able to put up enough points. I will say the lock of the week was Vandy covering. Like, that was one I felt really good about going into this week, based on how we've seen this Tennessee team the last couple weeks, and also just the rash of injuries that have taken over this Tennessee roster at this point. But 24 hours later, Ryan Schumpert, what are you still thinking about from the Commodores going down once again to Tennessee in Neyland?
I don't know, the brouhaha, how funny that was, how annoying the fact that it was a 4-hour game, the absurdity of Joe Milton crowning himself as a touchdown celebration, all of those things. Very little about the game. I mean, Tennessee came out and did what it should have done, and I guess that's not a given. Given they played pretty bad against, I don't even know if worse opponents, because UTSA would beat Vanderbilt, but some lesser opponents this season too on Vanderbilt's caliber. So I mean, it was good for Tennessee to go out and take care of business like they should have, but it's not like anything from the game was super interesting.
It's also like the most Joe Milton thing ever to have his best game as a Tennessee Volunteer in his last home game inside Neyland. Once it's all over and the 4 losses are there, and it's just that I can't get over. It's like we should have seen it coming that Joe was going to look like, if he had looked like anywhere close to that most weeks of the season looks pretty different for Tennessee. But alas, that it's still a great way for Joe Milton to go out. But the crowning was quite funny. But it is what it is. Jack Foster, what about you 24 hours later? What are you still thinking about? Is it the brouhaha that Ryan alluded to with the officials?
My biggest takeaway is that I'm glad for Ryan that he gets to say that word over and over again, and it maintains relevance for 48 to 72 hours, give or take. So congratulations, Ryan, for getting to use it in a headline and say it on 2 podcasts and write it multiple times. I know you love that. But no, that's not what I'm still thinking about. What you said, Chase, it's that Joe Milton had his best game at Tennessee, and what was his final regular season game as a Vol. We'll see how much or if he plays in the bowl game. But yeah, it's just kind of weird that he throws for nearly 400 yards and has 6 total touchdowns, just annihilates Vanderbilt, and was so good yesterday. And I know it's Vanderbilt, much lesser competition than the Clemsons of the world, which he had a good game, or anybody else. But, for 6 total touchdowns, I mean, the numbers don't lie. So Joe Milton was really good yesterday. We finally saw it this year. It was the 12th game of the year.
And that's the thing, like, Joe was awesome. Like, this really was like a great Joe Milton game. Like, he had some dimes, he was moving, like, he had way more off-platform throws that looked really good than we've seen all year long. He was a lot more comfortable. He never ran still. Like, that was something we did not see as much in this one. But, I mean, by and large, he was great. Squirrel had some early struggles, and then he broke through. He had a good day. The weird part, though, I would say, and I don't know if y'all agree with this, I did not like Jalen Wright. Shout out to Jalen for breaking 1,000 yards. First Tennessee back to break 1,000 yards since Jalen hurt almost a decade ago, which is pretty crazy to think about, that it's been nearly a decade since this has happened at UT, with the amount of just unbelievable running backs that have come through this program over the years. But I just thought it was odd that, like, Tennessee actually really struggled. Like, Dylan Sampson didn't really find any running lanes here. Jalen Wright had some, but he didn't have the big breakaway touchdown run or anything like that in this one that I think a lot of us probably would have thought, based on how the season has gone for Jalen, that he would have one big one in this game. But Tennessee was able to pass the ball to set up the run for the first time all year, and that was something we got so used to the last 2 years with Hendon, that, like, it was kind of like overwhelming to see it again, of like, oh yeah, this is what this offense used to look like. That was like the most 2022 Heupel offense that I've seen all year long. Did y'all feel the same?
Definitely, yeah.
I mean, you're right. It felt like the offense didn't run through the running backs. Didn't go through the running backs at all. It went through Joe, and it went through the receivers, and it went through the big plays. I mean, how often did you see receivers just wide open in the third level? So, that was just kind of the story of the game. Yeah, I think Jalen ran pretty well. The thing is, you look at the total carry numbers, and it was a good amount. They ran the ball, but it didn't really feel like they were running the ball a lot. Jalen Wright didn't even get the 62 yards in the first half. I thought he'd get it in the first quarter. And, they didn't use Dylan Sampson a lot either. So that's just kind of how the game went, and Joe got his numbers. Yeah,
I mean, what was the most impressive thing to you, Ryan, about what Joe did in this game? Was there a particular throw that impressed you the most? What about Joe in this one separated his other performances?
I don't even necessarily think it. I guess it's just a consistency that separated it from his other performances. I mean, you mentioned off kilter throws and off script throws. I mean, I thought we saw a decent bit of that against Alabama and Kentucky, but just never stringing it together for multiple games. And even just on the quick, easy stuff, like he was accurate. He didn't complete all of them, but more of those. With there was some squirrel white drops. Like he was just consistent, and for the most part, everything was kind of there because they were playing a Vanderbilt team that wasn't very good. And I think you mentioned the lack of success, or maybe not overwhelming success from the run game. Like a lot of that's the fact that you have 3 offensive line starters out and you have another one moved and not playing at the position that he's usually starting at. And then I also think Vanderbilt kind of stacked the box a little bit, which gave Tennessee a lot of opportunities to just throw those kind of quick screens. And there were plays to be made there because Vanderbilt was loading the box and because Vanderbilt secondary was groundbreakingly slow. I think when you talk about Milton, he certainly was good. I don't mean to diminish that, but it just felt like he did. That's what we've said in the past. Josh Heupel offense is good because so much of it's so simple. Like I just felt like he did the simple things really consistently, and then he made a couple of those off-script plays that he's made this season, just hasn't been able to make consistently through a game-to-game standpoint.
And shout out to the tight ends. Great day. Yeah. I wish Castles was back. I think he would have been really fun in year 2 with the system because he was really comfortable in this game and really comfortable down the stretch. I wish we got Castles back for one more year.
Yeah, he's been a nice addition this year. I like the way he plays, and I feel like he has really good awareness of where the ball is, just able to locate it. Like, I know you're going to ask this later probably, but one of the best my favorite play of the game was the touchdown to Cali. Just over the DB's head. It was a great throw and catch. And, Jacob Bourne, I mean, he's one of the best guys on the team. Like him going out of his way to thank the media at the end of the press conference, just a class act. So it was good to see him have a big senior day, just from an emotional standpoint and, him going out in style like that.
Ryan, you're smirking over there. Like, what was that smirk? Ryan's going to make me laugh. Ryan's smirking over here.
No, I mean, you are right. Jacob Bourne is a class act. He's a great dude. It's just, there's nothing. One of my favorite funny things in media is whenever a player thanks the media, it's just a guarantee the media's going to call it a class act, and it's all accurate in this case. It's all accurate for Jacob Warren. I don't mean to lead it.
He's always been one of the best interviews on the team.
No, he is. He is one of the best interviews on the team and gives insightful answers. That was just such a media trope that it made me chuckle.
You know what would have been awesome? Like Kamal just being like, actually, not a fan. Like Kamal Hadden just comes out and is just like, didn't enjoy it this year. Not gonna lie.
Well, Kamal never talks to the media, so
yeah,
he wasn't going to be given that opportunity yesterday, even if he was playing.
Yeah. What if Jeremy? Yeah, go ahead.
Can't believe they didn't put Tyler Barron on the panel last night. Senior day for him. Had a good night.
Big game.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious. I mean, I will say though, am I crazy? Did he not hear the whistle? Because I didn't hear the whistle on screen. I mean, do we think he knew? What is the final answer on this? Do you think Tyler Barron knew the whistle blew and it was a dirty hit, or do you think he didn't hear it?
I mean, it's hard to say for sure. We're talking about the first one, right?
Yeah, the first one, not the second one.
It's hard to say for sure. To me, the whistle was pretty clear, and it was pretty clear everyone stopped playing. And again, I don't know what's going on inside. I can't say it was intentional. I thought he should have been given a 15-yard penalty for that one.
Yeah.
Second one, I don't think anyone knew the whistle was blown until 3 minutes after the play was over, basically, when they finally calmed Clark Lee down enough to call a false start or delay a game, whatever it was.
Yeah, I've never seen that either. Like a delay a game and you let the whole play out, and then you just call it. That was just the back to back there was pretty crazy. And also quarterbacks, you got to spike the ball when that happens. When you think you hear the whistle and you play, spike the ball, because I don't think Tyler Barron makes that hit if he spikes the ball. I think he knows at that point. True. That needs to be trained. Biggest moment of the game for you, Jack Foster, was what? Your favorite play? We know. The play to McAllen Castles. What was your favorite moment? What was the biggest moment in this game? Or maybe even the turning point?
Okay. Well, if we're going turning point, it's hard to say just because it was a lopsided win. But I'll say just Tennessee, adjusting defensively, because Vanderbilt scored in 3 plays, I believe, just very quickly. It was, blow for blow and, 7-7. And then Tennessee punts and that it's like, okay, here we go. Is Tennessee going to actually struggle with Vanderbilt? They've been terrible the last 2 weeks. Is Tennessee actually going to struggle with Vanderbilt today? But then the defense, prevented any sort of close game from happening there on out, really in the first half, and it ended up being 45-10 at one point. I mean, this was a blowout. I know it was a 24-point win, but Tennessee blew out Vanderbilt yesterday. So just the defense adjusting, forcing punts after that first drive, I thought was really what made the difference in this game and allowed Tennessee's offense to coast, if you will.
What about you, Ryan?
I would say the drive after all the melee and the kerfuffle were Tennessee probably one of its best 2-minute drives of the season. It goes right down the field, gets a pass interference call that was pretty obvious, pretty terrible play by the defensive back. I think it would have been pretty uncatchable, but it was just so blatant and far away from where the pass was intended. I think they had to call it. And then Tennessee executes and goes and capitalizes on that, with whatever it was, 10 seconds, one timeout. You're kind of playing the math game there a little bit. And from that point, again, the game was already over, but Tennessee, or maybe the game wasn't over. Vanderbilt wasn't going to win, even Tennessee doesn't score there. But that makes it a 21-point game at halftime, makes it really comfortable. And obviously Vanderbilt, I think, got the ball to start the second half. So feasibly 14-point game, Vanderbilt makes it drive. They can make it a little competitive. The one other moment I'll add, you said he was your lock of the week or whatever your phrase about Vanderbilt covering.
Yeah, you got lucky.
To the Vanderbilt better, shout out D. Williams for muffing that punt, because Vanderbilt was not covering that game if D. Williams doesn't muff a punt inside the 10-yard line. And Vanderbilt gets a touchdown there, and then Tennessee's got its second and third string in on a day where they were already missing a lot of players, and Vanderbilt got another touchdown. So in a game that was never truly in doubt from the actual result, the D. Williams muff punt was a huge moment for those betting on the spread.
Yeah, I will also say, we'll talk about another moment that affected the final spread here, that Heupel is now really into doing, that I'm curious to get y'all's perspective on, because I have a take on this, but we'll talk about it in a second. Best performance for you in this game. Was it Joe Milton, or was it the coaching? Was it a position group as a whole? What was the best performance for you, Jack?
Yeah, it's Joe Milton, but shout out to the pass rush. This is a group that had kind of disappeared down the stretch in the back half of the season. And, they were wreaking havoc against Vanderbilt yesterday. James Pierce especially doesn't show on the stat sheet, but that dude lived in the backfield. And Tyler Barron, too. We kind of mentioned him already. He had a really good day. So those two, shout out to a great regular season finale.
I don't know if Tyler Barron had a great day. I think Tyler Barron, I mean, obviously we're going to remember what his the moment of what happened with the melee and everything.
It just felt like he was in the mix on a lot of plays, too. I mean, like I said, James Pierce was more noticeable, but
I was gonna say is, like, Josh Josephs actually popped. Like, he that was like the best Josh Josephs game, right, of the year. That was the most I've seen Josh Josephs maybe this whole year. I thought he was really good. That was a big surprise to me, as Joseph was actually pretty good on the other side of James Pierce. And if Tennessee is able to turn both of those guys into elite edge guys going into next year, and they have a great offseason, I'm excited. About that. Was one of those games at the end where I was like, ooh, this is cool. Josh Josephs and James Pierce, back. Year 3, we're so back. Well, I mean, hold on. Just to be clear, because many forget before the year, my prediction of James Pierce being a breakout guy on the edge. Feel really good about that one. That was probably my one big hit of the year for Tennessee football.
You deserve all the flowers. I'm here.
Hit it a century, some would say.
Yeah, I mean, many are saying, actually. But
I do love how I feel like we've talked about it a lot, how every time he's had a big game, he's just been quiet for the last month. So you said, if you don't remember, I was all over this one. And you were, so kudos to you.
Also, they weren't doubling. Like, Vandy, what are you doing? Like, he was just no chips, no anything. James Pierce, like, you cannot win one-on-one with the Vandy offensive tackles. Those poor guys were just getting shredded by Pierce on the edge.
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt about it. My answer to your question, I think it's Joe Milton who had the best day. And the tight ends would probably be my next one, but we already talked about them. So another guy I'll shout out Ramel Keaton. Has had a pretty disappointing season. I had a big day to end this year. Two long touchdown catches, and including one. I mean, I talked about the Vanderbilt secondary being slow. Ramel Keaton, solid player, not quite the speedster, and he made the Vanderbilt. He looked like Tyreek Hill outrunning the Vanderbilt defensive backs on that kind of comeback route when he made kind of one stutter move and just ran past the whole secondary. So for a guy, kind of again the senior day theme, a lot of Tennessee seniors had good games yesterday. Ramel Keaton definitely had his best of his season as well.
Worst performance from you, Jack, was what?
Worst performance. I don't really have a great answer.
Jack, I got you.
Okay, help me out.
I'll give you a hint. It's the entire offensive line depth because, my God. Like, we're at a point where this game was like, they were mixing and matching. Like, Jackson Lampley, like, it's nothing against Jackson Lampley. Like, it's just, the PFF grade match what I was saying. Like, I'm just sitting there and I'm watching and I'm like, this is a problem where you're like, we're passing a lot here. And I don't know if that was part of what happened with the run game was just how injured, like, Cooper going out immediately was like, oh, man. But Ollie Lane deserves all the flowers, man. He has played every position basically on this offensive line this year, and he, in fitting fashion, his last moment in kneeling is he has to move over again and play center when Cooper goes down. But I thought he was solid, but Mincy having to play. No Jack Campbell in this game, which was kind of strange, especially that's his last opportunity in kneeling. Potentially, well, I really, really hope they can talk him back into sticking around for one more year, but it seems
how he has another year is one of the more absurd things.
Hold on.
Can we draw the line? Can the NCAA come in and draw the line after 6-year senior? No 7th-year players.
I mean, there are. Cam Rising is entering year 7 next year.
Well, I understand. I'm just saying that it's ridiculous. I don't get at that point. The COVID year, I'm fine with it. But at the point where the COVID year is giving you a 7th season, that's almost 2 full college tenures.
Look, man,
that's ridiculous. But
it just means more down here. Hold on, this is a very fair and balanced take. I think it's ridiculous when it doesn't benefit the Tennessee Volunteers.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think
John Campbell should be allowed to come back. This Tennessee's offensive line depth, as you said, is so bad.
I mean, no young players. Like, there's none. Like, Addison Nichols a little bit, but that's my thing. Is the worst performance is like. No young guys. Like, they didn't even throw. Like, the game was out of reach, and we still didn't see any young guys. Like, that was the biggest alarm bell to me of worst performances. Like, there's no young freshman, sophomore that they believe in right now.
So your loser is depth, not necessarily.
Yeah, just like the performance of like loser in terms of like y'all didn't play anybody. Like, you didn't see what you had in Clipper and Reddick and Grant and like this, like so many dudes where I'm like,
Grant was out for what it's worth.
Oh, was he out? Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know.
No, I'm not sure we would have seen him anyway, but he was.
Not a lot of Addison Nichols even really. I mean, he played a little bit, but I don't know. You would have liked to have seen more. Bison Lang more in this one, especially if Cooper doesn't come back.
Addison Nichols did play a lot for what it's worth.
How many snaps did he get?
67.
Did he get 67? Okay.
I think he played every snap after Cooper got hurt.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's good. But I don't know. It's by and large, it's just I am so curious how the offensive line is dealt with in the portal over the next couple weeks and recruiting as they wrap up some big names. Hopefully Jordan Seaton is able to get in the boat here because that's a huge thing if they can pull that off. Because if you have Bennett Warren and Jordan Seaton at the 2 tackle spots going into next year and maybe get one of Mincy and Campbell back, I mean you feel really good about your protection on the outside for Joe Milton. But look, Ollie Lane had a great year. Andre will be back. We'll see what that looks like. We'll see what happens with Addison this offseason. I feel like it's a big offseason for him. Big offseason for Bryson Lang. I don't know. We'll see. But Dane Davis, trooper till the end. Another guy who played like every position at UT. But it was just a lot of... I guess, is it a positive that Tennessee is able to just move guys around like that and still survive and win and you didn't really notice? Like, I mean, they were able to just... It seemed like they could put anybody in any spot in the offensive line yesterday and they still would have won the game by 3+ scores.
I think that speaks more to Vanderbilt than it does Tennessee, personally.
That's
I mean, I think I texted it in our mess group thread, like, just with what Tennessee was... I mean, obviously Tennessee played well, so it's not a comment to necessarily their performance, but just with what Tennessee had out there from an injury standpoint yesterday, it's like, you feel good about them beating, like, Arkansas, Mississippi State, and Vanderbilt. Not to say they couldn't have beaten any other teams in the SEC, but it's not like you're feeling great about it when Tennessee's having to trot out. They would have needed Joe Milton to play well against just about anybody else. And obviously he did, but that obviously has not been a given this season either.
Jack, what did you make of the officiating in this game? What was the most egregious? What was the craziest part of the officiating in this one? The same officials from Tennessee, Alabama, by the way, I think.
Oh, nice. The craziest part of the officiating was allowing the fight to even happen. I mean, they lost complete control of everything, and not hearing the whistle on the delay of game. I don't even think it was blown. No one even knew it was a delay of game until 2 to 3 minutes after everything had unraveled there for a second. And you know how chippy they are going into the 3rd and 39. Like, be so alert to prevent something from happening, and they they badly failed at doing so. Because all hell broke loose. But yeah, just allowing that to escalate like that, and Clark Lee, he's to blame a little bit too, because him getting so fired up like that and just acting like a madman, I think, contributed to everything. But yeah, the officials kind of being a factor in all that going down, I think, was pretty bad and pretty embarrassing.
Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, I would echo Jack's sentiment that Clark Lee was a madman. I mean, it happened. I can't remember the other time. It happened another time in the game too. I think it was earlier, and he wanted a pass interference, which was a pass interference on 3rd down, and he came again like running or sprinting out on the field like past the numbers. It was like the farthest I've ever seen a coach out on the field. I think specifically with that sequence, where I think they really messed up is after the delay game. So the second time that AJ Swan took a hit when the play was blown dead, and this is when Clark Lee was going crazy. So obviously some of the refs were preoccupied, but for like, I don't know, 30, 45 seconds, like Tennessee's defensive line and Vanderbilt's offensive line were just like jawing at each other and pushing each other a little bit. And no one ever came in to like clean it up. I mean, I think it was maybe Dominique Bailey. It was Tyler Barron and somebody else was talking to him. And Dominique Bailey was one of them. Someone came in and kind of like pulled the Tennessee guys away, but like that, it easily could have escalated worse there. And I just think the fact that the two sides were able to talk to each other and allowed it to get chippy for such an extended period of time while they were trying to figure out what had happened then, with no ref ever stepping in and doing anything to de-escalate it, was a big part of the reason that it flared up after the next play.
Yeah, it's just kind of wild. This was all avoidable. Like, this is one of those where you're like, what are y'all doing? Like, you could have nipped this in the bud. You could just see it. Like, everyone in the building, every coaching staff, like the coaching staff felt it. All of this could have been avoided. Like, the fact that it happened back to back, and then, I mean, just the Vanderbilt offensive lineman with the cheap shot there, like that, you could see that brewing.
Good thing that didn't balloon out up more than
yes. Because I think that
really
was a sneaky one that's forgotten. It's like that cheap shot could have easily turned this into way more of a melee and a really, really big mess.
Yeah, it could. And I mean, it was ridiculously late. Like,
yes.
Absurdly late. Yeah, so that's, I mean, we were criticizing Clark Lee. Like, I'd say credit to the Vanderbilt coaches there. It was obviously kind of on that sideline. And they were very quick to get out and kind of, stand between the sideline and the field and make sure no players from Vanderbilt ran on the field like, it happened a couple minutes earlier.
Clark Lee's credit, like, I get it in terms of the quarterback. Like, you just want to protect your guy, and you see him take 2 back-to-back shots on issues that really stem from the officials, right? Like, making sure that they have control of the game, making sure players hear the whistle, making sure that play is stopped before you have a dead ball just shot to your guy. You're already banged up at the quarterback spot. Like, I understand that part of it, but there is a level of, like, you got to control your emotions a little bit. You gotta be better about that, because like Vandy fed off of it. The players fed off it. They saw their coach really, really hyped up and angry, and I just think it's just easy to permeate onto the team. And football's a violent sport, and that's just how it went. But thankfully, it did not get worse in this one. But man, just a rough year for SEC officiating all across the board in Tennessee was an issue. But I want to ask you this, like, Ryan, this another highly penalized game for Tennessee in this one. Is it just something that we just have to accept? Because everyone writes, I'm reading the recaps and different people write about Tennessee. It's like they got to clean it up. Josh Heupel has got to really clean it up. And then you read a preview. Heupel and the Tennessee, they really need to clean up their penalties from a week ago. They were penalized blank for blank. And I just, at a certain point, you're like, you almost made the playoff with a team that was penalized actually more than this year's team was penalized across the full season. It's annoying, it's frustrating, but I don't think it's going to be the end-all be-all in terms of whether or not you can get to where you want to go as a program. I don't know. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I haven't really thought about it a ton, so I don't have maybe necessarily very concise, can't speak, answer to that. I think offensively that's probably fair. I think the offensive issues, just some of it with the tempo, they're going to have some of the pre-snap issues. And I think probably the way they space the field so much makes some holding calls more obvious where, some teams, you got everybody inside and it's just a lot going on. It's going to be easier to get away with a hold. Defensively, I think it's where they got to clean it up. I just, multiple times this season, yesterday was probably the worst. And to Josh Heupel's credit, he kind of said as much after the game. Like, they just weren't disciplined on defense. And I didn't think they were disciplined there really all season. And I can't, I think Jeremy Banks was a pretty undisciplined player and it had some issues. I can't think besides him the last 2 years that was a big problem for defense or not. But the defense is working on margins that are smaller. And this is not going to be an elite defense, I don't think, much, at least in the Josh Heupel tenure. So I don't think you can make those mistakes. And they're just simple discipline mistakes. Whereas the offensive mistakes, I think both, obviously not this season, but I think generally speaking, Josh Heupel's offenses are more attuned to be able to overcome some penalties, especially at home, especially when they just don't have their, tires in the mud and they can't get anything started. And then also just the fact that some of them is, I think, a little bit a product of the system and the offense that they're running.
Do you share that sentiment, Jack?
Yeah, I agree. And I think Ryan had a tweet yesterday. It was one of Tennessee's first drives, and they had a holding penalty, and it was on first down, and they were approaching midfield, I want to say. So obviously first and 20. And Ryan tweeted, "There's the inevitable holding call to kill the drive. Like put a fork in it, it's done. It's first and 20, doesn't matter, drive's over." And they punted. They did not pick up the first down. So yeah, that's an offensive penalty. I do agree that it's more noticeable on the defensive side of things, but sometimes, when you're looking at this year too, I don't know if this is going to be something that continues, but you couldn't have offensive penalties this year because of who you had at quarterback and just because how this offense ran this year and it wasn't near as efficient as last year. But yeah, I mean, they've been among the top 30 to 40 teams in the FBS and as far as penalized teams. So it is something to keep track of, but I'm not losing sleep over it. I guess that's kind of my take on it.
We agree. PFF grades that felt right, felt wrong for you, Ryan.
Well, I'll just say to my PFF, you didn't take my PFF stat this week. I appreciate it. You saved it for me.
Look, I'm taken back. I heard what you said last week, and I'll stick away from it. I'll give you your shine here, Ryan.
And I almost brought it up earlier, but what stood out the most to me was just the fact that Tennessee's 4 highest graded defenders were all freshmen and sophomores. And it was James Pierce and Josh Josephs, who we talked about a little bit earlier, but it was Jeremiah Telander, who earned a 90.8 grade and played really well. And Ricky Gibson, again, who it feels like every time we've seen Ricky Gibson on the field, he's played well. And it feels like he's one of those guys that's almost definitively going to be a starter next year. And I know a lot can happen in the offseason, but it just makes too much sense for him to step in up into a spot and really Kamal had in a spot that will be gone and Gabe Judy Lawley. I'm planning on running the numbers tomorrow. I know and what every senior can and can't come back, so I'm not positive on him. But if he's gone, stepping into one of those spots, so I think that's the good sign. That's maybe the most positive thing is just the young players for Tennessee. We talked about the young players on the offensive line didn't even get the opportunities. The young players on Tennessee's defense continue to get opportunities this season, maybe not as much as people would have wanted, especially in the secondary, but those guys played well in this one. And I feel like as a whole, you could see Tennessee's freshman, sophomore defenders that Josh Heupel and his staff have recruited, and a lot of them have been higher rated recruits and have been kind of the guys that you're waiting for the talent level to catch up for the defense. It feels like all those guys got better over the course of the season, and the Vanderbilt game certainly kind of barred that out.
Absolutely. Telander's gonna be a dude. Telander, he might be a big winner from Carter missing out. Like, I think Carter was gonna be good regardless. I mean, it sucks that he didn't get those reps down the stretch, and obviously a lot of fanfare, high publicity, beating Alabama for him late in the process, in-state kid. But I don't know. I mean, Telander, I think, is a huge win, and like you said, Gibson playing a lot more snaps this week, which is good. But John Slaughter gets 1 snap in this game. Like, Jalen McCullough, who that was it for him. He was solid this year. I think he had a good bounce back year for Tennessee. No Wesley Walker, and then Andre Turntime plays a bunch of snaps, and you just don't get a lot of other reps. Like, I don't understand the Jordan Matthews thing at all, that he didn't.
Yeah, what about like even Warren Burrell getting 18 snaps?
Yeah. Why?
Like, what are we doing?
I don't understand it because it's just. I mean, I guess that's because Warren Burrell's not back, right? This is it for him.
No, he's not back.
Okay, so like, what are we doing? Like Christian Charles can't get on the field, or excuse me, not Christian Charles. Christian Conyer can't get on the field because we really didn't see him at all. But Jordan Matthews has been the biggest head scratcher to me at the corner spot. Because Ricky Gibson, like you said, it does certainly feel like he's a locked-in starter going into next year because that dude, he's big. He looks pretty big for a true freshman too. Like he's just tall and lanky. He pops when you watch him. He's not afraid of contact. Pretty confident player, which you have to be on the perimeter. I don't know. I'm pretty optimistic there, but like you're losing a lot of freaking snaps with Wesley Walker and Jalen McCullough leaving, and you gave no snaps to anybody in those spots all year long. So I'm very interested, especially Tamari McDonald. If he's not back, you're looking at 3 new spots where those guys played a crap load of snaps the last 2 years, and you didn't develop anyone behind them. So it's going to be a bunch of new faces, and I guess you're going to have to hit the portal hard there because I don't know. Do y'all think that they're going to go internal on all 3 of those spots if they are all gone?
No, I don't think so. And I think I'm much more worried about the safety spot than the corner spot going into next year. The one guy I will say in-house that I'm pretty high on is Jordan Thomas. He was out, or not officially out, but I'm assuming.
But he didn't play much this year at all.
No, he didn't. They didn't. I mean, he didn't play anybody at those 3 spots. But he played a lot in the Missouri game, and I thought not a lot went well in that Missouri game. But I thought for the most part he played decent. And Tamari McDonald is one of those seniors that didn't go through senior day, so definitely seems like he's at least heavily considering coming back. And if he does, I think it'll be interesting as to where everybody necessarily gets matched up at. And they try to move Jordan Thomas back to safety. It just feels like he's of their internal options. He's one of their best, and they're definitely gonna have to hit the portal.
I mean, I think Danico should go back to safety, right? Like at this point, I think you spend all offseason putting him back there because I think you have more depth at corner. I just felt like he was never comfortable at corner. It never worked, I don't think, with him there. It was more by just depth issues, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, he had Judy Lawley, who, ended up becoming,
pretty solid,
matching him. And then obviously they had an injury, forced Slaughter to play out there. But yeah, I think mostly depth issues and the fact that they were just not willing to throw one of the young guys into the fire.
I agree. Coming into the portal, it's a big couple weeks here for Tennessee. We mentioned Jordan Seaton. That's probably going to come down the pike. They don't get Cam Michael. He ends up at Colorado, but I think it's still a win because it does end up at Georgia. Those recruitments are always good because it's like, all right, well, he didn't end up at a rival, and I would rather him go to the Big 12 than anywhere else because you don't have to face him and this, that, and the other. But when you look at the portal and what's popping up over the next 2 weeks, who is the most interesting player to watch for you, Jack? Who are you most interested in? Maybe in terms of who's currently on this team that might enter the portal for Tennessee that you're curious about, or who out there you're pretty interested in is maybe a good fit for Tennessee to target?
Well, if we're talking about players exiting, I mean, what we talked about a little bit before the show, or maybe at the very beginning, I can't really remember, but Dylan Sampson, I was expecting big things from him next year. Small may come back. I don't know. Does he have one more year?
He can come back. Yeah, I know
believe
Small
he does,
can.
yeah.
He's also a likable dude. I like when I listen to Jabari Small, I'm like, I like Jabari Small. He's gonna be a coach up there. Like he's a future coach. He's like doing the Jerome Carvin thing, where Jerome Carvin isn't he like on staff or something? He's just like back. Am I misremembering that?
No, he's with.
No, I'm pretty. He was his picture is Tennessee. I'm telling you, Jerome Carvin, is he back? What is Jerome Carvin doing? Because he's not on an NFL roster right now.
But anyway, I don't think he is. He got cut from the Chiefs before the season started. Anyway. Just the running back position. Jalen Wright's probably gone, I think. If Small comes back, he's not a game changer. Khalifa Keith, we'll see what happens there. But he feels like, just the big back, the bruiser, not really somebody you can lean on to do a whole lot. And then Cam Seldon, he's a freak. But I don't know. We saw none of him. And is that going to pan out? He's an interesting player. So the running back spot is something I'm looking at. There's always good names in the portal at running back. And if Dylan's gone, then, it becomes a big need. So,
I mean, if Dylan goes, I have no idea what it looks like.
Yeah, very true.
Because, I mean, the plan has to be Dylan's their RB1 going into next year, right? There's no way they have, that has to be the plan.
Wait, what's
yeah, it has to be the
Dylan's
plan,
RB1 going into next year.
Definitely.
It has to be the plan, but it's the whole thing with NIL now. It's, where are you willing to spend? And is it worth spending a lot of money on a running back? It's a position that you feel like you can rotate. And certainly Josh Heupel's offense has had a lot of success with a lot of different running backs. And, this isn't to say that Tennessee shouldn't want Dylan Sampson back. They definitely should. And if he does come back, I'd expect him to be Tennessee's starter. But I don't think he's a perfect back. Especially when you talk about a guy that's going to be your every down back. I think his vision's not all that great, and he misses a lot of holes. And he can make, something out of nothing at a really high level. But I think there's a lot of plays where he leaves a lot of yards out there. So I would think if he goes, then the intensity to try to get Jabari back would be really important. I still think Tennessee would probably try to add a guy in the portal. But I think you would just be in desperate need of someone proven coming back. And Dylan Sampson is kind of almost a antithesis of Dylan Sampson in that way, that he's not going to do a lot of stuff to make your jaw drop and the spectacular, but there's 4 yards out there. He's going to get 4 yards, and he's not going to leave a lot of yards out there. He's going to do the little things well. He's going to protect the football. He's going to pass block well. So that'll be an interesting one. And I think this is a whole, I don't know. I haven't seen enough players entering the portal, but always going to be a premium on offensive linemen. In any portal class, Tennessee needs them badly. There's not a ton of super quality guys, especially tackle bodies out there. And we just mentioned it too. I think safety will be a really important spot. I think those are the two spots you'll probably see Tennessee take multiple guys at.
And wide receiver.
See, the wide receiver, I don't know. Like, Dante Thornton obviously didn't work this year, but he looked better on the edge, or on the perimeter at the end of the year. Get him back healthy. He seems back, because I think he quote tweeted John Campbell and was like, "Come back," because John Campbell made a post about his last one. So clearly Dante Thornton is planning on being back. That being said, I think it's more internal. Like, you saw Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman had the bump. Like, guys, I think just take time to develop in this system. I think it's a harder system for receivers to learn and master. That I think Dante Thornton, I would bet on him being a lot better in year 2. And now, he's only outside guy. Just keep him out there, put him in the Javonte Payton role, and that's it. Like, just say that's fine and move him there. I think it's Brew McCoy to me. Like, I think he's a sneaky, extremely important person to be back. You get year 3 in the system with Brew. He has an opportunity to have a big year, and he's so good at blocking on the edge, and he's such a different kind of guy. I just love the idea of Brew on one side, Mike Matthews in the slot, and Dante Thornton on the other side. Like, if you're able to
throwing Squirrel wide away.
Squirrel, let me tell you, I was talking to Rusty Manziel.
Best receiver, get rid of him.
No, I love Squirrel. Don't get me wrong. I love Squirrel. But you don't sign the best wide receiver in the class, really, in Mike Matthews. I mean, Mike Matthews, when I was talking to Rusty Manziel last week of Dogs on 3, Georgia wanted him. And, like, it's not just because my man went to my high school. He's an alumni. He was like, no, Mike Matthews is a freak. And, like, he's going to be coming in, obviously, in the next couple of weeks for bowl prep, and he's an early enrollee. But Mike Matthews is going to find his way to the field. And I think most guys want to start off in the slot and they move outside once they get more comfortable in the system, or they start out on the outside and move into the slot when they get more comfortable. I don't know where Mike Matthews ultimately starts, but based on the conversation I had with Rusty, it seems like something went very wrong if Mike Matthews is, I get that he's a freshman, but if he's not getting a bunch of reps right out of the gate, I think something went wrong. Matthews is too good.
That would just be very not Josh Heupel and just not.
Come on the pod, Josh. We're going to have a conversation.
That's just not happening, I don't think.
Frank Caliendo doing Mel Kiper about everything Chase Thompson just said about the receiver position. You just said.
Well, hold on. Leave Chase Thompson out of it. I'm Chase Thomas.
Chase Thomas. All right, trying to move past it. I just called the host of the show by the wrong name.
No, continue. You're off to a great start. I don't know where you're going. No, keep going, Ryan.
Well, you just did your whole diatribe about how the receivers get so much better with multiple years.
Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman.
Offense. Yeah, and then you just told me Mike Matthews is going to come in and bump out Tennessee's best receiver this year as a starter.
I didn't say bump out. I said that rotate. Like, that's the dream, is be able to rotate Mike Matthews.
You use the word rotate. Let's put that
okay, that's fine. Oh, we did not use the word rotate.
You said slide in Mike Matthews to the slot position, and that's the only place Squirrel White's playing on the football.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, Mike Matthews is going to play. I just think a lot of people who are Heupel's going to have to evolve. Mike is going to have to play, and I think he's going to have to play a lot.
And then I guess with the other stuff, I agree in the sense that Tennessee does. I don't think Tennessee needs to add a bunch of numbers or bodies to the receiver room. I think that's the opposite of the case. But they're to me missing number one pretty badly. And is that plausible for Dante Thornton? I think yes. I think he has that talent. It's you mentioned it, the jumps that guys have made in this offense. I don't think you can say it's
I
impossible.
think Nimrod popped down the stretch, by the way. Is there a Cedric Tillman year 3 bump for Nimrod?
I don't particularly think so. Maybe I'll be proved wrong. But it goes back to my point. This offense desperately needs a number one receiver.
Yeah.
And I don't, maybe it's Thornton, but I'm not really confident saying they have anybody else on the roster. So if there is a big name guy or there's a guy out there that Tennessee thinks can be that, I think they should go extremely, extremely hard at him and commit to getting him. And as much as I think Brew McCoy is a really solid player and he's a good player, like I don't think his ceiling is number one receiver level good. I think he's, a good number 3, a solid number 2. And I think we've had this conversation a couple weeks ago. Squirrel White just, I like him a lot, but he's not going to be a guy that's going to go out there and I think have a 13-yard season and be your go-to guy on third downs and stuff like that. So I think there's a glaring need for a number 1. And maybe they gamble on thinking it's Dante Thornton, but that's certainly a position I would be monitoring and trying to go hard at if some big name guy does pop up and enters the portal.
Final thing here, Jack. The most important senior that if you're Josh Heupel, you work to talk back into one more year at Tennessee, who is it for you?
Spraggs and Mays.
Okay. I would agree, probably.
And it feels like, Mays, the whole report of him not doing it, it's a little more publicized that he was not going through senior day. The Spraggs ones, obviously not a lot there, but those two guys.
If you only get one, who do you take? Is it Mays? If you only can have one back.
It's got to be Mays.
Yeah, I'd say so.
What about you, Ryan? Are those your two most important ones to come back to talk into coming back?
As well. And really, it's everybody on the offensive line.
Yeah.
But I think those are the two best offensive linemen. So I'll say them. And I mean, it's just for the reasons that we talked about earlier in this podcast of how bad Tennessee's depth is at offensive line and how bleak things look after the starters or maybe the first 7 or 8 guys. And if Cooper Mays is gone, who's starting at center? Because I got no confidence in anybody
I guess,
currently
right?
on. I don't have a whole lot of confidence in anybody that's currently on Tennessee's roster. So maybe you go out and find somebody in the portal. Maybe a young guy like Vyson Lang does take a big step. But to your point, Chase, Vyson Lang, Tennessee was down 3 offensive line starters yesterday. They were winning by 30 points for a large part in the second half, and he did play. So that's not exactly a ringing endorsement of where he's currently at in his development.
You could sell me on it being Amari Thomas.
They need the body.
They don't have any depth at defensive tackle right now. I mean, maybe what Tyree Weathersby looks like going into next year, because losing him early really sucked for them. But Omar Norman Lott, like you could, I think that's kind of like terrifying if they lose Lott and Thomas this cycle, because there is not like Bryson Eason's back, but I mean Elijah Simmons I think can come back. Devin Hobbs should be a starter next year. He's popped, but they just don't have a lot of bodies at DT. Like Terry leaving this past cycle hurt their bodies. Karak Garland I think is gone. I don't know. Like they're really thin there, and I mean Omari's a leader on that side of the ball. That kind of worries me. I would say Amari Thomas is a sneaky important one to get back for one more year to bridge the depth gap.
Yeah, I think it's one of those two guys. You need one of those two guys back. I mean, you'd probably vote Amari because he's been more consistent and he is a leader. But
yeah,
if they get one of Omar Norman Lott and Amari Thomas back, I'm not like overly concerned about it. There's pressure on those guys to develop.
That I'd be like, yeah, it's Keenan Peely. Like if you get Keenan Peely back for year 19 of his college career, because I think the man's like 27, that's a win. Because then if you feel good about the linebacker room, right? Like if you have Peely back and then you have Telander, Spillman, Carter, and Elijah back where I'm not going to do this. Elijah is like your 5th most important linebacker. You're in a much better spot.
Yeah, I was thinking about that earlier when we were talking about Telander. It's just, he
looks good.
Is it him and Carter? I guess it's him and Carter next year.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I would say with him and Carter, like those are two dudes. And again, this is like somewhere that young guys typically develop a lot. Two dudes that haven't necessarily looked great in pass coverage. But as I'm saying this and I'm thinking it through, literally none of Tennessee's returning linebackers.
I was going to say, beggars can't be choosers here.
Mark on all their games. So, yeah.
There you go.
Side, I guess.
Ryan Schumpert, what can the good folks check out from you and the team over at Rocky Top Insider this week?
Oh, all the normal good stuff. Kicking off the off season, we'll be monitoring the transfer portal from both names that make sense for Tennessee and Tennessee guys entering any sort of decisions we get this week on players deciding to come back or go, any coaching decisions, any recruiting, all the stuff in the offseason. And Rick and I will be in Chapel Hill this week for Tennessee as basketball as they look to get back on the right track after losing 2 straight to end the Maui Invitational.
Can't lose too many more games. You don't win the title with double-digit losses heading into the NCAA tournament. So they've given up 2 early.
I'm glad that you're changing the bar to 10 because it was last year you were giving up on them. I think was it 8?
I think it
before
said 8
the
or 9
tournament.
Yeah.
But you did have a stat to back it up.
That's what I'm saying. Like, people don't realize this. I'm like, no, Tennessee's out. Like, if you get to gobble up a couple to the SEC, to some good SEC teams like Kentucky or whoever, like,
you'll lose a good bit this year because just the schedule is so difficult.
I'm out. Baseball season is here.
You're gonna be out.
Go Baseballs.
Chase is going to be out not before New Year, but before baseball season starts. Chase will be out on the Tennessee basketball team. That's my prediction.
Oh yeah, I'm already inching closer and closer to there. I'm already like, there's me like Wednesday night. Like, man, Ledlam would have really, really helped if you had that one last body. I'm not there. Jack Foster, what about you and the team over at Always College Football and everywhere else on the internet for you this week?
Yeah, just the typical. We got, I guess, one of the last big weeks for a while. The last big week for a while. Seeing how everything shakes out with conference championship weekends and all the different scenarios will be discussed this week on the shows. We got 3 more shows this week after today's show, so 4 total. But yeah, everything's coming down to the wire, and Greg will be on Tuesday night's reaction show like always for the rankings.
There you go. Jack, Ryan, thank you as always, and I'll talk to y'all next week.